Welcome back to Big Boss Mare with Brandy Von Holten. Today's guest is one heck of a cowgirl named Karen Peck. Not only is she an established artist making large pieces from welding metal, but she has now jumped into a new medium using wool for needle felting. Karen is a true cowgirl with having been a header and a heeler in team roping. I first met Karen and her family when they decided to try obstacle competitions. At the age of 55 and at 56, Karen won back-to-back titles as the All Around Cowgirl. One of the most joyous times in her life was the birth of her first granddaughter, Charley. However, Karen then went through the roughest of rough times within a short span of time with the death of her mother, a divorce, and her daughter-in-law being diagnosed and going through aggressive treatment from Hodgkin's lymphoma. Karen and her family are moving forward and credit their resiliency made possible only through their strong foundation in Christ. Welcome back to Big Boss Mare with Brandy Von Holten. Today's guest is one of my very best friends. Her name is Karen Peck. Okay, so Karen and we met since we've opened Von Holten Ranch, and we opened Von Holten Ranch in 2014, and I do believe she was here in, what do you think, Karen, 2015, 2016?
My first was 2015 at one of the trail obstacle courses.
Yeah, it was probably maybe ACTHA or ETS, so the American Competitive Trail Horse Association. That association's no longer around, or it was ETS for Equine Trail Sports. It was one of those two. And Karen, you were a roper, right?
Correct.
Yeah, you did what, heading and heeling, or did you just do one?
Primarily heading, but I like to heel as well.
Okay, so for all of my people out there that are not horse people, this right here, there's two people that are going to rope, and there's a calf that comes out. It's a steer, and they're horned. And then you have one that has to rope the head of it, and then the other one that has to rope the back legs. Okay, so this is like a return to the cowboy, because whenever these cattle, and they're on these huge prairie lands, and you don't have pins to put them in, you have to be able to rope them to doctor them, treat them, you got to check on stuff. So, and it's a lot easier to have a two-person team than a one-person team. Is that correct?
That's correct. Early on, it was called team tying. You would rope the steer head and heel, and then tie its feet together. One man would get off of his horse and run down and tie the feet together so that you could doctor, brand, preg test, or, help birth a calf.
Okay, so this right here does not sound like a sport that's going to have a lot of females in it. It sounds like a sport that's going to be dominated by men, typically. Is that correct?
It's correct, but like other sports, when women became interested in it, the sport evolved to add divisions for women, whether it would be a mixed team, which one had to be male, one had to be female, or junior-senior mix, which would be young person, woman, man mix. So the sport evolved to include women.
Okay. So whenever they give you there's a classification, and it goes, what is the number that it starts at and the number it goes to?
Well, there's different associations. It's a lot like the equine trail stuff. So you're ranked by your abilities, winning age, things like that, handicaps, basically like golf. So different, basically it's 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. Most women are between 6 and 3, I would say.
Okay, a 6 and a 3. Now then, do most people primarily have like a dominant one where they're either mostly a header or mostly a heeler, or do you see people being able to flip back and forth?
I would say most people are either head or heel.
Okay. Now then,
especially if you compete, if you're on a working ranch, you should be able to do both. Okay. Because you would rope the heel in the branding pen, and then you'd have to be able to catch rope which head or heel, out in the pasture.
Okay. So you have a ranking, or I don't know if they say ranking or classification in both heading and heeling. Are you
Correct.
You're a 4 or a 5? What are you?
Well, it's changed. I'm no longer numbered because I don't compete in the team roping realm anymore. In competition, I primarily just do the trail stuff. So I was in the old system, it was a 4 and a 3, 4 header, 3 healer.
Okay.
Which means I head better than I heel.
Okay. All right. So this right here. So here's my friend Karen. Now Karen is also an artist. Okay. So Karen, you use all sorts of mediums, correct? That's what I would say is mediums, because you use metal and you use, I know you do paper also that you paint on, and canvases. Do you have another medium that you use besides welding and canvases?
Right now I'm involved in learning and perfecting a craft called felting, which is using wool and a barbed needle to sculpt with.
Okay. That is crazy sounding to me, because one of the trips that Karen and I went on was that we needed to deliver it was a mama longhorn, I do believe, and then her calf. But it was something that she had welded together. But then once we delivered this, people were able to add rocks inside of it to be able to give it coloring. Is that correct?
That's correct. The premise behind was found objects. So it was using metal, but then rocks native to the area to create the color pattern in the mama cow and calf.
Okay. This thing was huge. Okay. We had to take a horse trailer and put this, because like the way that she had welded it, the mama cow was had her legs crossed and was seated, and it wasn't something that was supposed to look abstract. No, it looked real. It looked
yes.
So
she was laying down. So the calf and the mama cow and calf were laying together, and so both of the sculptures were in a laying position.
Right. So this right here, I know whenever somebody pulls up to the people's house that have that, it's going to be most definitely like a huge statement piece. it just makes the place. The place that we took it to was a beautiful home, and they had a nice ranch, working, where they were able to do horse events with cattle. But then to have that artwork, and it's not small. You made it life size. So that right there is going to most definitely up the beauty of these people's place that you brought it to. So
yeah, they did a really, really great job of course they installed it. They were building this home when we delivered it, and they installed it after the home was built, and they kind of were around the home for a while to see where the natural setting would be. So the calf and cow were laying under a mesquite tree, which is native to the area where they live. So it's really pretty. They did a really great job planting grasses around it. So it's like one of those things that my artwork is supposed to make you go, oh, when you see it. It's not supposed to be, out there. It's supposed to be hidden where you look at it and you go, is that real? And then you go over and look at it.
So whenever you come to Von Holten Ranch, we have something we have a statue, but ours is not as cool as what Karen makes, okay? Ours used to belong to one of my friends, and then she got divorced, and then the husband actually sold us the horse statue. And she said that she had gotten it from a taxidermy place, but it's fiberglass, but then she had it painted to look bronze. So whenever people come to Von Holten Ranch, they think that we have spent some money, and we're like, nope, you can lift that thing with one hand, but we have it bolted down and put a concrete pier underneath it. But it looks so substantial when you're coming here, and we're like, oh no, that's just a really good paint job looking bronze. So
it really does look nice. it was interesting because the trip that you and I took to deliver the cow calf, we were driving through no man's land in Texas or New Mexico, and there was this giant cowboy, kind of like that Texas state cowboy metal piece by a gas station that was abandoned and stuff, and it was really, really fun. And you were like, "Oh, I need that," and that's great. That's so true. Different facilities need different statements.
Right. You know, we have on our mountain trail course, which is like an obstacle course that we have that's made to help increase safety amongst trail riders because they can introduce their horse to natural obstacles. On that course, my father ended up with a 1946 fire truck. Okay, so it's kind of an odd thing to do. Like, what do you do with a 1946 fire truck that no longer runs? Well, we put it out there in that mountain trail course, and our judges can sit in the back because we have it elevated so they're able to see all of the competitors and judge from there. But then that 1946 fire truck, it's red, but then it's rusted, but then it's, it reminds you of times gone by, that vehicles don't look like that anymore. There's so many wedding parties that we have here that take a picture with that fire truck, and it is literally like the most beautiful wedding photo. But we use it for a stand for our judges. So, artwork looks like, most people think artwork has to be just hung on a wall, but artwork can be, anything. It can be outside underneath a tree.
Yeah, that's where found objects come into a lot of art anymore. Because you can be inspired just like that fire truck that is so cool. Because even if you come across an abandoned vehicle in a wash as you're riding, it could really take a horse by surprise. So even within the atmosphere, it's good for horses to see something unexpected. But in art, that's that really cool thing. That fire truck is truly a piece of found object art because it adds a dynamic to your mountain trail course that no one else has. It's just out there in the setting, and even with the grassland behind it, making those great wedding photos. It's awesome. It is art.
Right. I love it. So let's talk about, now I have you on here to talk about some cool stuff that you've done, but there's so many cool things about Karen Peck. I wanted to make sure and talk about her artistry. Okay, so you actually have an upcoming art show. Is that correct?
I did. I was recently accepted into an art show that's here in Arizona. And this is my first felted piece to put in an art show, so I'm pretty excited. Felting is little known; it's been around since the early 1800s or prior to that. So it's a European crafting that's just making its way into the United States. And I learned from a woman in Pennsylvania who I found on the internet when I was researching, because there was a lot of European artists doing it, but not so many in America. So I was excited that I was accepted because it's something most people haven't seen or haven't recognized. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, I know in the horse world, it's always good to be innovative and to be the first person that brings something. And like with us, I am always trying to evolve to be even better. So the fact that you're like, okay, here's something that's not seen in the United States a lot, and you're like, I'm going to learn how to do this. See, that right there is going to make you stand out because it's refreshing, it's innovative for people to see. So I could see your love with that.
It's so much, and that's why, Brandy, that you and I are like spirits in the way we're always thinking. That's one thing that we do is we call long distance, to brainstorm. I got this great idea. What do you think? And we knock things off each other. But how many trail facilities? Everybody loves to trail ride, right?
Right.
But then if you've been trail riding all your life out on the trails, and you go to a facility like yours to go ride the trails, and that's great and your place is beautiful and you have water crossings and mountains and you have all these different obstacles that are natural to the trail. But then people who have not experienced obstacles have the opportunity to go and say, I just wonder, is that something that my horse is proficient at? Can I try that? So you give people opportunities to broaden their horizons on their horse and their rider ability right there at a facility. And not many facilities offer that to the extent that yours does.
Right. We have it's a family-owned farm, and it's 300 acres, and with that, we have about 25 miles of trail. And we realize that some of the other facilities have a lot more, but we're not trying to target the clients that are going to want to ride 60 miles in a day. I mean, they would just have to do ours over and over. But then what we have is a covered arena plus the mountain trail course. So you can come to a lot of times when there's a covered arena, then they don't have trails. And a lot of trail facilities do not have an arena. Well, then we're also adding, we've got the mountain trail course, which that thing has brought people from all over the United States, and it's not even halfway done. And then this year, we are adding our permanent mounted archery course. So, we're trying to be we might not have something, but then we've got something for everyone is what we're trying to do at our facility. It's just always about trying to be the best at what you are. I had a marketing lady be like, well, who's your biggest competitor? And I'm all like, I don't know anybody in our state that has our combination. So I'm like, I'm not trying to compete with other people. I'm trying to be the best that I can be. So that's really helped us to be able to stand out.
Well, I think that's true. And I think that your mindset has been, we could put a little rope gate out there and a couple noodles and call it that. But you were like, what if you don't let your dreams be held too small? You are able to say, well, what if we made an actual mountain trail course with these permanent fixtures instead of, we've always had things around we could work on there, but to explode that to something to the extent that you have, even though it's only half done. I don't want people to think that it's half-hearted. What you've done is amazing.
No, what we are trying to do, what we consider half done, whenever I tell people that this is half finished, they're like, are you serious? And I'm like, oh yeah, because the financial amount that we've already put into that and the work is beyond what most obstacle courses are. Most obstacle courses are not permanent. Most of them, whenever we've had them in the past, it kind of looked like a tornado went through a yard sale. And ours does not look like that now. Now we have bridges that are large enough for a horse to walk over and walk under by another horse. We have boulders that we brought in from out of state. We really tried to bring our boom. And this is what the obstacles is what brought you to us. But before we had that permanent course, we were doing more obstacles that were not permanent. And a lot of them were kind of playful. For example, I used to have a tutu that went on my pony named Cupcake. And I would have them have to have their horse stand still whenever Cupcake would walk by. Well, first of all, a lot of horses are scared to death of ponies. And then you put a very large pink tutu on a pony, and then you ask that horse to stand still. Especially whenever you're dealing with y'all's horses they're good old roping horses that are used to going fast. And then you're like, I need you to stand still and let this goofy little pony go by with a tutu on. So that is where our relationship started, was you and a lot of your roping friends decided to do something different with your horses and bring them out here for those obstacle competitions. And then here we are today doing a podcast, and you live in a different state, and I probably talk to you more than I talk to other people. So
that's true, but that's the horse community. Friendships in the horse community are long-term friendships. I find that because you can pick up right where you're at because you have like interests, and desires and goals. And so I think that a horse community is really a good community for that.
Okay.
The other thing is, it's interesting because our whole thought with the obstacles was in our world, it would be you want to clean your horse's mind up and keep them fresh, keep them they'll get really all about the run and all about the competition, just as the person will. But you want a whole relationship with your horse. So our thoughts were, wow, bringing on young horses and cleaning up the minds in old horses. Let's do this obstacle thing because we really can measure, is our horse listening to us all the time? So that's kind of what started us interest in the obstacle stuff. And I came out just as a day rider. I had honestly never camped because we'd camp at a rope-in, but never to camp and ride. So that opened up a whole thing of camping and trail riding. I had ridden day ride stuff, but never to camp and do it for days on end. And so that opened a whole story in my life.
One of the most... A moment that I remember with your friends, one of your best friends, her name is Polly, and her husband's name is Dave. And Dave was on a very young horse, and the obstacle, okay, so imagine this, people. We have 2 barrels put together so you could duck down and hide behind it, and then there was a gap, and then 2 more barrels, okay? So we had this stuffed horse, like not a real horse, not taxidermy, no, like a child's toy, but it was strong enough for a child to sit on. Well, we had screwed that thing to a piece of plywood and put a rope to it. So we had it hiding behind the barrels on one side and a rope with a human squatted down behind the other one. And the obstacle was there's 3 different levels of which you can get close to this, and then we would drag the horse across that opening. So Dave was like, I totally got this. And he came to the hardest level, which was the one closest to those barrels. And whenever that we pulled, and we didn't even do it fast, but whenever we pulled that stuffed horse going from one barrel to the other across that gap, that horse was like, oh, heck no, and like spun 180 degrees. And I think he was 100 foot away before he could get that horse shut down. And he was like, okay, we got to work on that for sure. But we laughed and Dave laughed. And then, after the obstacle was over with, we came back and did it a couple more times till his horse was A-okay with it. But we found a hole for that little horse that day for sure.
That's right. And you just never know in any given circumstance. That seems funny to do that, but you never know when something runs across the trail or someone or a little kid comes from behind a chute and runs across and, is your horse in your hand? So it's valuable to put your horses in those situations to know where they're at.
Right. I had already won a buckle one time in an obstacle competition whenever I figured out that my trusty gelding, like the horse that I trust my life with, was not okay with a toddler running towards him saying, horsey, horsey, with an umbrella. Okay, so we found a hole, and luckily my horse was like, ah, and then like ran away, and I was able to shut him down, but I was like, okay, we need work with umbrellas being lower to the ground, because I can open an umbrella on him, but one coming at him by this little bitty child, it scared him to death, so.
That's right.
Well, and kids are not aware. As soon as kids see horses, they're like, run towards them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have no idea the danger you could be in. But that's why obstacles are so important, to make your horses more solid so they're safer around everyone.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Karen is a little bit older than I am. She's almost about 18, 19 years older than me. And she competed. We had these things called our Cowgirl Challenges, okay? We had a team version, and then we also had an individual. So these Cowgirl Challenges, you had to do 8 different things, and then who was the best overall was the All Around Cowgirl. So in these challenges, I had buckles because there was 4 events that had to do on a horse or a mule. and then 4 events that had nothing to do with the horse, like tire changing or something, okay? So I gave out buckles for the overall cowgirl, then for the best horse person, and then the best non-horse person. And then I added the best cowgirl that was 50 and over. Okay, so Karen came in here at 55 in 2017 and actually won our All Around Cowgirl Challenge. So listen to these things that she had to do, okay? You know, in barrel racing, there's 3 barrels that are put into a triangle pattern. Well, there's one called a 4-leaf clover, where there's 4 barrels out there, and you have to make a 4-leaf clover pattern, so it's a speed event. Then we have obstacles. I actually have a picture of Karen standing up on top of her horse for the last obstacle, holding a banner. So she went above and beyond. She was on the most trustworthy horse ever. Then roping, which you have a lot of experience in that. So you had roping. And then we had a pleasure pattern. Like those right there is like a set pattern with you have to show different transitions. So those were the horse events. Now the non-horse events, I created these cowgirl tests, which were meant to be extremely hard, but it's like a written test. Then trailer backing. So you would, and my husband would judge those right there with how accurate you could get to where you were needing to park. Then we had bridle assembly, which is putting together the thing that goes on the horse's head. It's called a bridle. So I made them take it completely apart and put it all the way back together. That is a lot harder than what people realize. There's a couple of pieces that are very, have different variations, so you have to know how to do all of them. Then the last one was called cooking in one pot. So it had to be one pot of something that turned out great. So Karen came, and at 50, now this was open to all ages, and at 55 years old, she won the All Around Cowgirl in this competition. Now then, not only did Karen do this at 55, but she also had her daughter compete that's in her 20s. Now her daughter, Shawnee is high functioning autistic. Whenever Shawnee was first born, I think the doctor said that she would not ever function. Is that correct, Karen?
Well, there was concerns, of course, that was early on in autism, and that's a whole other thing. But she didn't talk until say sentences till she was 5 years old. So at that point, autism was pretty new, and so they were very cautious about telling us what her level of functioning would be going forward. So it was a pretty scary time.
Yeah. Whatever limitations they put on Shawnee has basically said, she's basically popped her collar and said, "What are you talking to me?" Because Shawnee she's got an associate's degree in, I think, art. Is that correct?
In design, and she's working on her bachelor's in elementary ed right now.
Right. And so she's got an associate working on a bachelor.
She's working as a paraprofessional, helping at-risk children through their days at school. So it's really neat.
And she's actually won a buckle with us before. And Shawnee actually goes and does, she's a keynote speaker about being autistic but still functioning well. So she does all sorts of stuff. I've had Shawnee, I think she beat you in cooking, if I'm correct. I think she did. If she didn't, I think your daughter beat you in cooking. She makes something called, what is that thing called that she makes all in one pot? Like hodgepodge. Her hodgepodge is pretty freaking good. So
it is.
I love that you got to do something with your daughter and compete with her side by side. And then I love that she is, she's able to hang with anything. I mean, sometimes she might get a little bit confused on what we were asking on something, but then she always picks it up. She'll always pick it up and be able to get something done for us for sure. Now,
well, the trail obstacles have been huge for her because direction following and 2 and 3 part directions for anyone, who struggles is a big deal. So for her to focus on leveled directions is a big deal, and a great skill for her to learn. And through the horses, because she had a tremendous desire to beat me, that really helped her grow in that area.
Yep. Well, you end up being the champion in that one. And I remember talking to you after that competition, and you were like, I'm on top of the world. Here you are, 55. You beat some ladies in their 20s and their 30s. I mean, you came out there and rocked it. And then I remember talking to you the day afterwards. You had to do something in the Bobcat, and you hurt your back, and you were like, I was on top of the world. And then I was like, oh no, dang it, my back.
Right.
And
the next day, I was back on the farm, and I was trimming brush on a Bobcat, and they kind of bounce bad and, can kind of be hard on your back. So it was like, well, I used to feel young. Today I feel my age.
So that was 55. So now then let's take 365 blinkers. Okay, so you went, the following year, 2018, not that far along. So she was 56. She came back. Now everybody knows that Karen Peck is here to win, okay? So, it's easier to become a champion, especially when people don't know you. It's easier to become a champion than to remain a champion. So, everybody had her number, and they were like, yeah, look out for Karen, okay? And here Karen is, just super nice, and then Karen's got a complete head of gray hair. She done dye her hair, and she's just like, hey, y'all, and you got to love you. There's nobody out there that doesn't just love Karen Peck, right? And then you're like, and I kicked your butt. So
No, that's not my ass.
2018, whenever you came back.
When you're gray-haired and going into that, you've got nothing to lose or prove. So I do have an advantage in that win, lose, or draw, just because you're older and you're out there doing it, you're winning. And that's how people feel. Now, not that they didn't have somebody that I knew, they knew I was going to work at making it harder on everybody. It's not too hard to, if I lost, who cares, right? I was there.
Right. Well, man, do you know, last year at our Country Tough Trail Versatility Nationals, we have a lady in her 70s that got second in our open division. She in the I know, and she paid a little bit of extra money for our photographer to get the pictures from the person that won first place so she could analyze it and beat him this year. And I'm like, oh yeah, go get it, girl. She was like, I can beat him. And I'm like, I love that grit,
Yeah.
So, all right. So in 2018, the All Around Cowgirl Challenge, you had to compete in hay stacking. And when we did hay stacking, we had 2 people go at one time. So then, whenever it's just one person competing in hay stacking, you'll push yourself. But whenever there's a second person, I mean, you blow up them cobwebs because you're like, it's a cold day before I'm going to let somebody beat me in hay stacking, when you got somebody right there and you can see them stacking hay. So we had that. We had shooting. And I think in that division, we actually had somebody that was 70 years old, I think, that won shooting. She was competing as a 70-year-old, but she's so healthy. Oh, my gosh. And then we had a division called I Can Drive That, which we had a small tractor at that time. We had tire changing, and then we had something called a Farm Girl Relay. And Farm Girl Relay, I know that we have wheelbarrows, and we have bags of shavings. We had clothes that had to be put on a line. I mean, it was like there was a whole series of things that had to be done. So those were the non-horse stuff. Now, the top working ranch hand included an obstacle course again. Now then, bareback pleasure. You had to do that pleasure pattern, but you had to do it bareback. Okay. Now we also had barrel racing. Now goat bloomer race. You had to run down, get off of your horse, put a pair of underwear on a goat, and then get back on your horse and come down. Okay. So that right there made some amazing pictures. Most people were just so happy to be around the goat. Like one lady even stopped and posed with a smile just because she was so happy about being around the little goat. Then we had modified cattle sorting, which was going in there and moving some cattle by yourself. So, so this competition, it was a lot closer because people knew exactly, they knew that Karen was going to bring the boom. So a lot more people prepared for this. So something that was another competitor that was at this competition had, she's in her early 20s and she's a mama, and she had someone hit her in a car like a year before, and she lost her leg. Like it was a lady that was texting and driving, and she hit this lady head on, and oh my gosh, it broke so many different bones. This lady has had so many surgeries. Well, she is also a horsewoman, and she had just gotten fitted for a prosthetic leg, because I think it's her left leg that is missing, and it's missing like from the knee. Like she's got a little bit of leg past the knee, and everything below that had to be amputated. So this lady, she did not come in last. I think she beat like 3 people overall. And she was able to do the tire changing, the relay. I mean, yeah, she was slower, but she still did. She did everything that everybody else did without special modifications. And at the award ceremony, I mean, people were crying, because they were just like, any excuse that I have ever made about like, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. Some of the younger competitors were like, I feel stupid for ever saying any of that, because here's this lady with, with a leg that's been amputated with a new prosthetic, and the prosthetic wasn't fitting her well, so she was having some pain issues. They've got it figured out now because, I think she has to put several socks on, and it was just new. There's pressure going on there. But at the end of that competition, everybody came together, and they ended up, you had won the overall, but then as the spirit of being a female that's stepping up to the plate, you actually awarded her with your buckle. And all the other competitors came together, and it took me a little while to get it in, but they purchased you a replacement buckle. But I seen that competitor, this lady, on the news, and she was wearing that buckle. I know that meant so much to her because she's trying to get back what she had lost of her being a horsewoman. And so in that,
she spirit, that was the spirit of the competition, and she made the competition because that especially that year was all about camaraderie and people coming up alongside one another, not just her, but that, we're all in this together, and we're, this is not about a winner. It's about winning as women in this competition.
Right. Whenever I look back on some of these events, like this one in 2018, one of the competitors that she'll always stand out to me of just how beautiful it was a competitor named Sharon, and Sharon riding bareback was like a new concept for her. I will never forget the beauty of her riding her horse bareback and overcoming that fear. I'll never forget, you and your daughter competing, and I'll never forget like you versus Abby on doing hay stacking. Because Abby, a lady named Abby, she got reverse champion both years. And so she was like in it to win it. And then here y'all, I think y'all were less than like a second apart or something. It was ridiculous.
And because she is as competitive as I am. And I think people kind of are like, ooh, that could get ugly, right? But that was best time competing against her. And then we ended up just by chance, because it was drawn where you ended up in the haystacking. And we knew we were neck and neck, and we had to stack against each other. And it was so much fun because when we finished, and I believe we tied legitimately on the haystacking, and we just walked out arm in arm laughing because it was so much fun.
Do you know, the only person I called before I did this podcast with you was Abby. I was like, Abby, is there anything you think somebody would ever want to know or anything like that? And she's like, man, Karen is such a respectable competitor. She was like, man, she is just one heck of a competitor. And she's like, that was such a fun event to do with her. You know, like you made it more fun because you made Abby be, you know, just even that much better. So.
Oh, yeah, and that's what competition does. It makes everybody better.
Yeah, I love those cowgirl challenges. You know how many people told me that I was crazy for wanting to do an all cowgirl event? They were like, women are going to bicker, women are going to fight, it's going to be nasty. Like, I had so many people say, girl, do not do an all female event. And you know, they couldn't have been more wrong. Because
that's right.
Oh, the friendships that were made in that and the love that was felt.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, it makes my heart swell now just thinking about these from the past. And, you know, there was 8 different events. I never told anybody where they placed at until the very end, you know, at the award ceremony. So that right there really helped keep the event. None of that. Nobody knew how they were doing. They just they would do their best because they didn't know where they were placed. A lot of people, it would always come down to those last couple of events. And if they thought that they couldn't win, they wouldn't do their best. So,
right.
All right.
Right.
So,
and that thing was interesting about those events was that that's really a replication of what it is to be a cowgirl. It's not just about can you rope a steer fast or that doesn't make you a cowgirl. It's can you hang the clothes on the line, right? While you've just pushed wheelbarrows full of something, and can you run quick, do that, and then go perform on a horse or do whatever's asked of you. And so the spirit of the event, and then it was really cool because you could only use one horse. So it took, nobody could come in with specialized horses, right? You have to use the horse you brought. And that was really important because then it was really real life. You had to pick your horse. The first year I took an old solid horse because I was, I didn't want to be terribly embarrassed. And he was just a old horse that I had all of his life that I trusted. And then the second year I was like, but can I do it on a different horse? Right? So that was an element of it, I think, that was really neat, that you had to use one horse.
Yeah, and these events right here, they're in my heart. From a marketing standpoint, people always thought that the event, I'll do it next year, and then they don't because they don't think that they're going to be good enough, right? So my first one of these was pretty big, and then everybody got accustomed to them being here. So I did not have one in 2020. I'm not going to have one in 2021, but I will bring it back. I'll probably bring the team one back because then people feel like, hey, you're going to do this and this. And it's a little bit easier whenever you have a team because if there's something you're horrible at, like a lot of people cannot back a trailer. And so if they know that they can give that to a person that's really good at it, then the teams are just as much as fun as the all around because then you've got your girls there. Y'all can have matching shirts. It's just.
Oh, that was super cool. I didn't get to compete in that one. I was out of town doing something, but our team, which I felt like I was part of, they had my picture there in a chair so I could help support them. But that was so much fun because all the months leading up, what are you doing? And you're preparing for this. And, everybody was connected going into that as a team. And it was such a great event.
Right. So those will be coming back in 2022. I have to keep things rare at our facility. As soon as people think it's normal, then the numbers kind of drop off. So I've got to keep it fresh. I'll bring back a team probably in 2022. So so that was when you were 55, 56. Okay, so now then we're going to talk about a couple other things. So Karen was in a marriage for decades, and it actually ended. It ended 2 years afterwards, so it freshly ended. And then after you went through a divorce, you had to your mother passed away on either, I think it's Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, not this year, but it was in 19. Is that correct? Yeah. So
that's all. I went in the course of 2 years, getting a divorce, finding out, well, first of all, having joyous events, having my first grandbaby, right?
Right.
My son gets a grandbaby. All my kids are graduated. Everything's great. My son's out of state with his young family. And then I find out that my marriage is failing and ending. My daughter-in-law gets diagnosed with cancer. My mom passes, and my best corgi in the whole world, Wilma, dies. And I mean, it was just big year.
You also had your horse passed away. The horse that you won the second Cowgirl Challenge on, that horse also passed away.
No,
right?
No, our filly passed. Our filly passed during this time. Yeah, but
your
that horse
filly.
is still at our home place.
Oh, okay. I thought it was your horse, but it was the filly and I know you had looked so forward to that, and your daughter was looking forward to the young horse, but it was just like anything that could have a problem. We're not talking about like a few stressors. It was every stressor in the world. Boom, 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 boom. It was like somebody was laying down cards, and it was just, everything was horrible. So now it has been a year, which 2020 was not the year for things to, like, there was already so many stresses in 2020 on top of all of the things that you were going through. So, but now your daughter-in-law, she's doing better. Like, I know that you had to go up to where they live at in Maryland, and then your mother was in Arizona. And now your daughter-in-law is doing better. You were she had an infant, and so you went up there and was a caregiver while she was going through treatment also. So how is she doing?
Correct. She's doing so much better. She had to go through extensive chemotherapy. She has Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then the chemotherapy wasn't doing exactly what they had hoped it would do, so she ended up getting a stem cell transplant, and so she has gone through that, and now she's been, I think like 160 days post-transplant, and while she has complications, she's doing well. And my dad has made it through the first year being without his spouse of 64 years.
Wow.
So he's well, and, I guess there's worldviews matter, and my hope is in Christ, right? I have a fundamental faith that pulls me through these things, but things are looking up, and while I was devastated, I'm excited.
Correct. So here's Karen, and Karen said that she, whenever she was going through everything that she was going through, we would call, and I would just talk kind of business with her about, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I remember you telling me that I was like, oh, like a breath of fresh air, because I had, we have excitement going on and positive things that we're trying to do here, and then how much that helped you to have somebody go forward. And I have a friend now that she lost her husband to suicide, and she has said the same thing, that I don't baby her. I'm like, hey, all right, not baby. That's like probably not the right word, but like I don't talk to her like she's a fragile eggshell. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, I've said, you can talk to me about anything that's going on, but then I'm going to treat you just like, hey, because she's also got a business, so I wanted to talk business with her, and she said that she's loved that because everybody's been so guarded in talking to her, and it made it like prolong the pain of everything, where she's like, I've got to pick up the pieces. And so our conversations are upbeat.
Yeah, that's key. I think anyone, it doesn't matter whether, I find that with my dad goes to Ropens and sits with the old guys. He's at like 86 now. And they talk about, tragedy doesn't have to define you, because you're still a real person, and you need those people that treat you like a real person, that you're not the tragedy that you have been through, that you're still a real person. Sometimes you need to be not defined by that.
Correct. Yeah. Well, and a lot of times, like I went through some rough stuff as a child and a young adult, but then I love for people to meet me whenever they don't know all of that, because then I don't know, it's just like it's a little bit fresher. Like the conversations are a little bit more fresh instead of like, like, oh, that stuff. Talking about that stuff brings me down. So it's really nice whenever sometimes people don't know that. So
yeah, we have saying in our family that events don't define us; they can refine us in who we are. So if you really look at, because all that I've been through, and everybody has a story, right?
Right.
Everybody, nobody gets out of this thing free of pain. But where I am now, peace, happiness, I'm good. It's been a big road, but boy, do I love people even more.
Right. Well, you find out who really has your back and really has your, right there with you whenever you go through something. And I love that you said that these events don't define us, they refine us. I know that there's nothing I have went through that was just horrible that I didn't get something out of it or a different perspective that made me better on the other side. It made me more empathetic about people. It made me more, it just made me understand people more going through some hard times. With everything that you've went through, you've got to be the all-knowing of how people feel at times. I call you whenever I have other friends that are going through grief and hard times. I'm like, Karen, what can I do to help them? And like, you're like, let me check my Rolodex of awful events. And like, what would have helped me? So anyways, I wanted to...
what empathy does, empathy gives you a whole new perspective. And I believe we go through tough things that we might help others.
Right. So if y'all don't understand why I call on Karen so much and why she's one of my best friends, even though I don't get to see her that often, man, by this, I mean, like, boom, Roper, right? And like went through a child having autism before autism was understood, and she helped her daughter become this amazing person that's now even going to help other people, whenever they told her that she wouldn't do anything, and you're like, nope, I'm going to focus on her. And then your son, does he have like his PhD in, I don't know, he is like highly educated. I know that. And is he a preacher?
He's a pastor in Maryland, and he's working on he's an interesting cat. I just love that both my kids are their own people. He's doing his PhD work in Old Testament studies. So, but he's a pretty cool cat.
Yeah.
Taking on things, because PhD work is like 7 years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Your kids are completely different, but then high functioning in their both realms of their life. And that common thread is Karen Peck. That was like, okay, let's do this. Here's the cards I have been dealt, and now let's make this where we're gonna help the world be a better place. So we have go ahead.
The common thread really has to be our worldview and belief system. I mean, and I'm not trying to get into religion or anything like that, but that we do believe. Our belief system is really strong, and so we believe in Christ, and that's our fundamental. You have to have a foundation. You have to have a rock.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, that holds you when things are shaking.
Yeah, you've got that good, solid foundation there, and your family has went through some shaky times, and then y'all are moving on and in a positive direction. So that has to be accredited to your faith for sure. Well, so here she is. She's one heck of a cowgirl, and then went through some of the worst events within a very short amount of time. And now on the other side of that, she's learned how to do this new form of artwork that's different for people to see in the United States, and is in an art show. And she's not even 60 years old. She's 59. So,
and yesterday, I got to tell you a quick story. We've been long, but I got to tell you a quick story. Yesterday, I had an internet hookup. So I met a woman through a trail riding website, which I've done before, who rides in an area I'm interested in riding and exploring. And she reached out, hey, do you want to come ride with me? Because I said I was looking to that area, and she said, I can really show you some pretty country. I'm like, okay, well, let's do this. And so I arrive at the trailhead. She's already there. She's ready to go. We get on. She's got the cutest little Molly mule, and the Molly mule's 15. Her name's Bella, and she's just fabulous. And we get to riding, and we're talking about stuff, and she asked me if I'd get down and get the gate, because it's hard for her to get off and on, because she's older than I am. Mm-hmm. She's 80. Oh. And this woman outrode me up and down some tough mountains. For 6 hours we rode in some really rugged, tough terrain that there aren't trails on. This is just the area of state land that she goes out and explores at 80.
80. Man.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, with us owning this facility, 50-year-olds are equal to 30-year-olds around here is what it looks like. And then 60-year-olds, a lot of times, I will tell you, whenever I have a female that turns 60, it's like they're like, oh my gosh, I'm 60, oh my God. And like they freak out. And then by 61, they're like, okay, I'm over that. Now I want to go ride my horse. But
right.
60 is rough for some ladies to turn 60. And I'm around so many of them. But then after that, they're good to go. And then my ladies in 70s, they don't care what you have to say about nothing. They're like, nope, I'm going to do this. And I got this new shirt, and check out my horse. But my 70-year-olds are some cool cats. Okay, like yeah. I love my ladies that are out here riding, and there's my 70-year-old guys, they just get a little bit more cautious, but then my women, I think they get squirrelier. They're just like, I'm going to try to do this. I got this new horse, and I'm just like, I love this. And I think I have one or two that are pretty active in their 80s. But I know they're coming up because, by God, I've got some 50s, 60s, and 70-year-olds that are acting like they're 25 and just having the best time ever.
We rode up. It was quite a ways up. What we rode up on this, we went up through a saddle on a mountain here in Arizona, and they started making these trails she was riding when she was 60. She moved to the area, and they started working on these trails. And so we ride up this really rough mountain up to the top into the saddle, and she's like, well, we'll take a little break when we get up there. And I'm thinking, oh, that's a good thing. And we get up there, and there's a cross, and there's a little memorial up there. And she tells me her sister, which is really a friend, but they'd ridden all their lives together since they'd moved there, Frances, wanted her ashes put up there in the saddle. And so they got a little memorial for Frances up there, and they, people send stuff up there. Frances died when she was 91. She was still riding at 90.
Wow. Now that's some goals. That is that's beautiful.
Gold. That's gold.
Mm-hmm.
To meet people like that and the wealth that these older women have to give to us is crazy.
Well, I know I've picked some of my best tips up from whenever I meet older people and they're still riding and they're still doing good, I listen up. And there are some tacking things that they're like, why would you do it that way? Do it this way. And I'm like, why? And then they tell me, and I'm like, well, that sounds like a great idea, and like older people have went through some lives and they've seen things happen that could have been avoided. And so with us owning this facility, we love whenever people enlighten us with things that we didn't ever think about. And they're like, you know, like we used to let people put their halters and lead ropes, like just drape it over the top. It wasn't tied to our arena. And then one lady was like, I seen a person go by and got their foot hung on one and it pulled them off. And I was like, oh my God, nobody's allowed to put their halter and lead rope ever on our arena because, there's two different types of people. Sometimes people that learn through words and people that learn through scars. And we like to be the people that learn through words. So we don't have to learn through scars. So, all right, Karen. So if somebody ever wanted to see your artwork, if they ever wanted to contact you for a piece of, because you do custom paintings. I've seen some pictures of some fish that you've drawn. I've seen stuff with different states. If they ever wanted to contact you about artwork, how do they do that?
I guess they'd have to go through Brandy Von Holten.
They'd have to go through.
Okay. You know me. I'm just doing the best I can, and right now I'm really into learning this, and I've got to test the waters to see if I'm where I want to be. I no longer do the metal work because of changes in my life and living place and all that, and that was kind of what I knew. And now I'm just learning this new obstacle course and going out there and testing the waters and getting better. So I'm kind of out of commission on that right now because this season is to be tested. So I gotta get in some art shows and I gotta see if I'm where I want to be on this before anybody gets a hold of anything.
Okay. All right. Well,
so I'm a member of the Arizona Artists Guild here in Arizona and the Sonora Artists. And this year I will start showing and selling. But, it's not about that. It's about can I make a go in the art world here because I have to make a go doing something. And so I'm really right now I'm setting that up to what can I make a go of it. So it's kind of, it's a gamble right now.
Well, that's funny that you say it's a gamble because I know if I had to bet on someone, I would bet on Karen Peck.
Well, I didn't show up. I did show up and not have studied for the test. So, but I typically like to kind of be prepared before I show up.
Right. You're talking about one of our cowgirl challenges. Yeah, I don't remember your score on that. I think it was pretty low, but you made up for it in other things, so that's okay.
No, I did really well because it was my art background because David wrote the test, right?
Oh, he wrote part of it. He wrote part of it about,
like trailer wiring. We had to know about trailer wiring. Which one was the brake and which one was the blinkers. And it was crazy hard. And I guessed at everything and won it.
Okay. I was thinking of your family whenever they did the team one. I know that the test score there was lower. We don't have to say names. We don't have to say names. She might be embarrassed.
Yeah, no. So I just I ran through it. I was done in like just minutes because I was like, well, this is going to be my low score of the whole competition.
Right. So, all right. Well, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this interview with Karen, and you see now why I contact her and be like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? If I come up with something crazy, Karen Peck has heard about it before y'all did because she helped me work through some of the pieces of it. So
it doesn't mean I always heeded my advice. So.
All right. Well, hey, thank y'all for tuning in to Big Boss Mare with Brandy Von Holten.